So it's National Poetry Month, and cities have been challenged to have poets read at council. A groundswell of poetry across the nation with mouthfuls of words flowing out at chambers. Poetry, they tell us, might bring something less routine, more entertaining, something a little more humane, more soulful than the daily rounds of reports and policy papers. So being Poet Laureate, I did some consultation. What people thought I could add to the conversation, and no one said, talk about nature or talk about the imagination. What they talked to me about was civic engagement. They said, we need to come together in communities as neighbors. They said, tell them how we're still affected by racism. If you're gonna be there, represent, speak the truth. They said, tell them we need more frequent transit routes. The buses are relied on by seniors and the youth, and we need more coverage in rural areas. And it feels like all the jobs are disappearing. And the sidewalks this winter, they were a nightmare. Talk about how next winter they're gonna be cleared, and housing when there's people living out in the cold. For the homeless, single mothers, and the old. And yes, we want Halifax to be bold, but I don't wanna lose my neighborhood to condos. And I don't want my local school to be closed. And I'm terrified that my child will be profiled and arrested. I want a future for them that's invested. I don't want them to have to go out west. I want neighborhoods that aren't neglected, and I want Indigenous women to be safe and protected, and I want all people in the city to be respected. And it's getting hard to pay the water and the rent. And I see too many struggling people when I walk down Gottingen. They said, we just want a say in how our taxes will be spent. And I read what they had to say. And I thought about their comments, and I'm bringing them to you. Not as a lecture, but because I can collect these voices, and I can rhyme them in a verse, and I can say to them, I'll try my best to do justice to your words, but you're the ones who really do the work so that their voices can be heard. Because poets are not the ones who truly create a vision for this city. What people want and need is already in this building, the decisions that are important for our communities and children, and in the voices on the streets that just need someone to listen. And it's in here where you decide on their position. So the work of poetry is already in here living, the humane, the soulful, and the hidden. And unlike poetry shows, council meetings don't end in ovations, and most of the staff who keep the city running remain nameless. And there is no street cleaning month or accountants month or people who record the minutes month, and nobody claps for the garbage collectors or writes epics about surveyors, but it's from the city workers to the staff, to the councillors, to the mayor. It's those reports and policy papers and dry municipal debates that really make the difference in the amount of food on people's plate. Because it's important to people that the buses not be late. And it might sound boring, but zoning regulations and property evaluations and policies on education and statistics and information and accounting publications, these may not be the things that fire the imagination like poetry, but those are the words that lay the foundation for us to have things like the arts and a place to go in nature and parks and beauty and building preservation. So what I'm saying is that a poet might be inspiration, but what we all need is daily dedication to keep making the city work for all our neighbors. And poets don't usually write about the dump or sewage or ditch taxes. We don't wax poetic about budgets or workers' contracts or whether the sidewalks can be adequately cleared by those bobcats. But as the Poet Laureate for Halifax, I can tell you simply that poetry touches people when it extracts their stories or reacts to their reality or simply shines some light through the cracks. People just want to be seen and heard, whether it's in a poem or a council through community feedback. So for having me here to speak, I'm honored, my sincere gratitude and thanks. But the words you speak in all your meetings, those really make an impact. And all of those letters and emails and community events where you make contact for every voice in this city that you bring back, that is poetry. And there is nothing more humane, more soulful, less routine than that. So thank you for having me, and I'll let you get back to your debates, your policy papers, your budgets, and all those stacks of reports, knowing that the stuff of poetry is truly inked in that. Thank you.